We're giving you our Norma Desmond close-ups because we just got back from Sunset Boulevard. So, hey everyone, again, it's Jeff and Jeff. Holy crap. There's so much to talk about with this show, all of which is
chills multiple times throughout the show.
Good stuff.
Including after the show was over, during the curtain call, 4 standing ovations throughout the show. 2 of which were immediate people jumping up.
I'm just...
It was amazing.
I have not been this blown away by a piece of theater in a very, very, very long time, if ever, honestly. And, there have been shows that, I won't remember forever because they are seared in my brain. This is probably at the top of the list now. A couple of things before we get, into the weeds on talking about this show. There's really not a way to talk about this show and about this production in particular without giving away spoilers, both about the plot and about the way this particular production has been staged. So if you don't want spoilers, skip this video.
Just know that it's good and
go see it. Get tickets now. If you're not in New York, I don't care what you need to do to get to New York and to see this show. I don't care if you need to sell a kidney, sell your kid's kidney. I don't care. Get your butt on a plane and go see this show. I'm doubting it's going to tour because of just it's Nicole Scherzinger, and I don't think I think the show would work without her. The production is solid without her, but I also, just as a realist, don't know if it would sell tickets without her, especially on tour. So just do what you need to do to get your butt here, although I am hearing rumors that this may get a pro shot. It may go to Los Angeles and be pro shot there, but no reputable news sources have reported this yet. I'm just hearing rumblings of that plan. But if you don't want spoilers, skip the video. Also, if you do not appreciate 4-letter words, turn this video off, because both of us curse like sailors when we are excited, and we are very excited about this show. So with that said, Sunset Boulevard is honestly one of our favorite shows of all time. Andrew Lloyd Webber's masterpiece and movie. The movie is spectacular, and if you have not seen the movie, do yourself a favor and see it. Even if you know the musical, the movie is well worth a watch and has some differences, but overall, I think knowing the movie makes you appreciate the musical even more, because they did such a wonderful job taking this film that is, a lot of people consider this to be one of the greatest films ever made, and I'm definitely one of those people. Yeah. But if you have not seen the film, go see the film. I think it's on Paramount Plus at the moment. I think I heard that. So, and then also listen to the cast album from the original American cast recording with Glenn Close, because it is a pretty substantially full, when we say it's a full cast album, I mean almost every line of dialogue is on that cast album as well. Yeah. So you really get a full idea of what the show is by just listening to it.
I may be putting words in your mouth, but I think the two of us prefer that cast recording. On the Broadway channel, Sirius XM, others would disagree.
We're talking about Seth Rudetsky.
Seth Rudetsky, yes. From a singing standpoint, yes, Glenn is not.
It's not as good as Patti LuPone was on the
singer as Patti LuPone or any of her replacements, but
I also think that
I think the acting that Glenn gives to it is better.
There were some substantial changes to the orchestrations and to the score as a whole that were made before the Glenn Close recording was made. And I think overall it's a better representation of what the show is, just because those changes are now kind of set in the show. Although this production
there were some new
had some very different orchestrations and some big lyric changes, which we'll talk about. But if you're not familiar with Sunset Boulevard and you're like, I don't care about spoilers, tell me what the hell this show is about. It is about Hollywood in 1940. Starts in 1949. And follows the story of this man named Joe Gillis, who's a struggling screenwriter, And the whole story is told in flashback, and this is a big spoiler. Joe's dead at the beginning of the show. He does a starts talking to the audience, like immediately breaks the fourth wall, talks to us, and tells us,
you want to know how I got to this point?
You want to know how I got murdered? Let's rewind this back.
Funny story. This just happened.
Yeah. And then it's all told in flashback from his point of view, and he starts the show very down on his luck. He's struggling to find work in Hollywood as a screenwriter. He tries to keep pitching this movie that no one wants. And there are these two guys that are trying to repossess his car. He kind of gets into a car chase with them, and in the car chase, one of his tires blows out, and he veers into this driveway on Sunset Boulevard. The driveway belongs to the mansion of a fading silent movie star, or faded silent movie star, named Norma Desmond, and she is trying to stage, but she will not call it come back to the screen. She will call it a return. But she's trying to stage a comeback, and she's written a movie for herself to star in called Salome. And she hires Joe. An epic movie that sounds epic for all of
Peter Jackson movie before Peter Jackson.
and she hires Joe to help her edit the script, and asks him to live in her house while doing this. And since he's down on his luck, and it's a mansion, and he knows a good deal when he sees one, he agrees to this. And over the course of the show, we realize that, one, Norma's a little deranged, and two, she has very strong feelings for Joe, feelings that he doesn't really return. He is more interested in his best friend's girlfriend, who he meets on the lot in the first scene of the show, and her name is Betty. She is an up-and-comer in Hollywood, trying to kind of clock her way up to the top as a fellow screenwriter. And they develop feelings for each other over the course of the show, but in order to kind of appease Norma and kind of stay in the living situation that he's in, Joe enters into a sexual relationship with Norma and kind of leads her on, and this all sort of comes to a very tragic end at the end of the show, obviously for Joe because he ends up dead. But also for like really everybody involved, including, and I think I forgot to mention the character of Max, Norma's butler, who has a very interesting relationship with her as well, and a very is very crucial to the entire story. So I was lucky enough to catch the original production of Sunset Boulevard when I was like, God, I must have been in like 3rd or 4th grade when I saw it in LA before the original production, the original Broadway production came to Broadway. So that was the production with Glenn Close that really kind of cemented the show. And look this one up if you can. I know there are videos on YouTube of the show, certainly clips of it are floating around, and images from the show are floating around, but it was like the first big project that Andrew Lloyd Webber did after Phantom, and it's like everyone talked about the chandelier in Phantom, and this entire freaking show was a chandelier. The set for the original production was a massive mansion set that needed 4 hydraulic lifts to move it on and off the stage, and to lift the entire thing off the stage at one point. You saw the same production, kind of, because it toured. Yeah. They toured it with a replica of the original set, and it made, I think, 3 or 4 tour stops before they realized this is not going to be financially successful with this gigantic of a set and having to move it from city to city. So they closed the tour down, downscaled it significantly, and then went back out. And I saw that production as well. And that one, I joked that Norma went from being a rich bitch to upper middle class. because the set was not nearly as big. It was still a great production. But I think a lot of people associate this show with grandeur and opulence, and like the character of Norma Desmond is so ridiculously over the top and has these incredible costumes typically in this ridiculously detailed and beautiful, gilded set. And this production takes all of that away. And it strips it down to the bare bones of the book, the score, and the acting. That doesn't mean it's not visually impressive. It is incredibly visually impressive. But
in
it
terms
is
of set and props,
there's nothing
little to none in each scene.
Yeah, there is nothing on that stage really other than a giant video wall, which is used to great effect. And we'll go into that in detail. But wanted to throw all of that out to you because I know some people, when it comes to revivals, are purists and they want things to be done the way they've always been done. And this production does not give you that. So if you are a fan of this show, but you're like, I need to see it the way I've always seen it, you might want to skip this revival. Yeah. But if you, I personally love it when directors and producers look at something with fresh eyes and do something completely new and innovative with the material, and that's exactly what this production does. That's exactly what I wanted the revival of Sweeney Todd to do last year, which it didn't, unfortunately. This really made me look at this show that I'm very familiar with in a completely different light. And really highlighted and elevated the story and the characters in a way that I thought I knew these characters and I thought I knew their character arcs, but this really just kind of blew that up.
Well, and the way in which it's staged, and the way in which it's staged, and even shown to us as an audience, it's a mashup of an homage to the film and showing us kind of like we are watching a movie.
Yeah.
But we're not watching a movie. We're watching a stage show. But yeah, it was a marriage of both, and it was very interesting.
Yeah.
How they did it.
So I guess we need to talk about the tech and direction before we go into the performances. This is going to be a long video. There's a lot of really amazing things to talk about here. But this production came to us from the West End, where it was incredibly successful, was the hottest ticket in London, kind of swept the Oliviers, and got Oliviers, which was like the British equivalent to the Tony Award for Best Revival of a Musical, Best Actor in a Musical, Best Actress in a Musical, Best Director, I think Best Choreographer, and a bunch of other nominations as well. And so this is a replica of that production with the same 4 principal leads. And I heard a rumor, and I really hope this is true, because if so, this makes her even more of a badass than I already thought she was. But Nicole Scherzinger allegedly only agreed to do this on Broadway if her other 3 main cast members came with her, because they were all nominated for Oliviers together, and I believe all 4 of them are making their Broadway debut in this show. She certainly is. She was supposed to make her Broadway debut in the revival of Cats, because she originated the role of Grisabella in that revival in the West End, but when it transferred from the West End, she didn't transfer with it. This is her Broadway debut, and my God, when she in the second act sings "This World's Waited Long Enough, I've Come Home at Last," she holds that motherfucking "I've come home" as long as she possibly can, and the audience erupted in applause mid-song when she finished that phrase, because we've been wanting her to be on Broadway for a long time, and she belongs on Broadway. And this is not going to be her only big Broadway role. She's going to be back several times over, I think, over her career, as she should.
Yeah, and it's shocking that given her age, not that she's old, but given that she's a seasoned
performer
and a trained opera singer.
Yes.
Professionally.
And
and
trained dancer. Like,
it's shocking that she hasn't been on Broadway before. Sounds like she's been on the West End.
She has, but not.
Was even that more recently?
I think I think these two shows are the only two West End shows that she's done.
It's a shame that she was involved in a girl group.
we're getting sidetracked. We've got a lot to talk about with her.
But
anyway, so the production came from the West End and is directed by Jamie Lloyd, who's kind of this wunderkid director in the West End. He's pretty young. He's about our age. I love to think that we're like young. He's in his early 40s, and he is known for very edgy, and is known for kind of stripping artifice away from pieces and making it really about the acting. And he's the one that directed Jessica Chastain a couple years ago in the revival of A Doll's House that was out here. And
also very good.
Also allegedly very good. I wish we had seen it. I've heard nothing but good things about that show. But he completely stripped away everything to the point where like the whole show is in pretty much black and white in terms of the lighting, in terms of the costuming. There is, as I said before, a giant video wall at the back of the stage, and there are cameras, handheld cameras, I believe usually kind of used by the actors themselves.
Mm-hmm. I think they had one.
They had a couple of, I think so.
Cameraman,
yeah, but a lot of times, like cameras held by the actors themselves, that would then, show us close-ups, show us things that are going on in the wings or backstage. There were entire scenes not like shown to us that didn't actually happen on the stage, and one in particular that is incredibly impressive. But we do it gives us this hybrid, and it's kind of an homage to Hollywood, but also like the show eviscerates Hollywood and says some very cynical and very realistic things about the Hollywood studio system in the 1940s and 1950s. And it's not just like in the way that Jamie Lloyd uses cameras in this show that does that. It's also just his blocking and staging is so inventive. There's a lot of scenes where people are talking to each other and not facing each other, not connecting physically with each other, which I think is a really interesting commentary on just human nature in general, that like sometimes we'll talk to people but we're not truly connected to them or invested in them. And then, like, of course, then when the moments of connection come in this show, they stand out because of that, which is really, really cool to see that. Like, and honestly, it's in the first act in particular, I feel like the only times that we have any moments where people actually connect are these moments between Joe and Betty, or Joe and Norma at the very, very end of the act. Is the first time that he actually connects with her on any level. So there's that. The staging, the way the ensemble is used in this show, even though it's primarily a 4-person show. I mean, there's really 4, 2 leads, 2 big supporting roles, and then an ensemble. And the way the ensemble is used in this show is so cool. Lots of interesting movement, and the choreography, by the way, in this is very like modern and edgy and contemporary, but really really fun to watch. And very well used. I don't think it was like over choreographed at all, even though there's way more dance in this production of SUNSET Boulevard than I've ever seen in the show. The choreography is by Fabian Alois, who also choreographed the London production. But the staging like had us hooked even in the first number. First number, Joe goes to the Paramount Studios lot, and he's trying to get his script sold, and he's talking to different people, and the way they have it staged They have the entire ensemble lined up in a straight line from downstage to upstage, and each time any of them have a line in the song, they're at the front of the line of people. They step out to either side, say their line, or they're having a conversation with another person, but they're not like looking at them or connecting with. They're facing straight out to the audience, say their lines, and then go back to the back of the line, and it just looked like an assembly line of people that is like, once they're used, Holly's gonna spit them out and send them to the back of the line again, and like that consistently happens throughout that number. And it's like kind of a theme throughout the show is like the fact that Hollywood's only going to use you until you're not useful anymore. And that happens to several characters in this show, not just Norma. I mean, predominantly her, but I feel like it happens to Joe. I mean, once he's no longer fulfilling his purpose, he's gone. This happens in a way to Artie, who's Betty's fiance. And I mean, I think that's always been in the show, is this very cynical view of Hollywood, but I've never seen it visually interpreted the way it's visually interpreted in this show, which was really fun to watch. The lighting for this show is spectacular. Lots of play with just light and shadow and mist and fog and things just kind of appearing out of nowhere, and people appearing out of nowhere. The lighting design is by Jack Knowles, who also, again, did the lighting for the London production. Brilliant work, and honestly, if it doesn't win a Tony, I would be shocked. Like some of the best lighting work I've seen ever, anywhere, in any space. Anything else that we need to mention regarding the tech other than the video stuff that really needs a long discussion?
No.
So the videoing, I mean, impressive to begin with, when things are being videoed on stage or backstage, because all of these are handheld cameras that have no cabling, no cords, and everything's instantaneously put up on that video screen. We're going to give a big spoiler about the way the second act opens. This got an immediate standing ovation at the end of it. But during the on-track music, the camera is following the actor who's playing Joe backstage, and he's going from like dressing room to dressing room, saying hi to his fellow performers. And it's all done in one continuous shot as he's walking the halls and walking up and down staircases backstage. It gets to the end of the on-track music, and you realize he's in the lobby. And he walks out the lobby doors onto the streets of Manhattan, sings the entire...
almost the entire song.
It's not the entire song. Almost the entire title song of the show outside as a camera is following around. Keep in mind, like, the orchestra is playing, and he's not even in the same building as the orchestra anymore, so they're clearly piping music into an inner ear system for him. Sound and video is completely synchronized throughout this whole thing as he goes down the block, down into Schubert Alley, and then back into the theater, and ends the song like as he's walking up the aisle of the orchestra section and back onto the stage. As soon as it was over, immediate applause that lasted for probably a good minute or two. It is such an impressive feat for the cast and crew. Every cast member is a part of that sequence. Some of them multiple times. By the way, they do this rain or shine, guys. Like, it was drizzling during their first preview, and they just sent them out with an umbrella and did the whole thing as staged. But really impressive. I have never seen anything like that, and very clever the way that it's done. That there are certain things and like certain places where he stops that lyrically match up with what he's singing about. Like, there's a lyric that he has about like And if I'm honest, I'm touched by the lady. And he says that as he's standing by a poster of Nicole Scherzinger advertising the show.
Mm-hmm.
The first time he sings the word Sunset Boulevard, he's under the marquee that says Sunset Boulevard. Like there's just some very clever moments within the sequence that were just unbelievably cool. It's also different than the way it was done in London, not just because it's in a different venue, but in the London version of this sequence, the camera only followed Joe. This time, it still really only follows him, but they included the ensemble outside for a segment of this, which I think was really smart and clever and justifiable, if in terms of the way it fit in lyrically.
Yeah, again, it fit lyrically, and kudos to all the ensemble members, because the way it's staged. So as he's going down the stairs and he's talking to all these
and
people, we see them all again later, and they somehow are at the end of Schubert Alley,
which is
before
not
he
where
comes back to the theater,
which is about half a block away from the theater.
Yeah, so they had to do their little high with him at the beginning, and then run.
And as we were talking about that on our walk back to our hotel, we were like, for a lot of them, the shortest path is probably not the path they can take, because it's the path that he's taking with the camera crew. So they've probably got to go like the long way and sprint. Mm-hmm. So ensemble for Sunset Boulevard, you guys are working your butts off, and unbelievable work. So we do got to talk about these performances, and I did say it was a 4-person show, but there's one fifth person in the ensemble that has kind of a bigger role than most of the ensemble people.
Well, back to the videos, sorry, with the handheld cameras. So in the two two speeding car shots of the show, one at the end with Betty as she's racing to the mansion, and at the beginning when Joe is fleeing the repo man for his car, the rigs that they've got the cameras on are stabilized such that the actor is holding the rig and like motion like they're steering a car, but the camera is still fully focused on them, and their face. All we see is just their eyes moving, or like they're driving, and it really impressive.
Yeah, really cool.
The camera stabilization
and
of the rig, and I'm sure the high-tech camera itself.
And my God, Tom Francis, who plays Joe, like runs around like crazy. And we'll talk about him a lot. But the one ensemble member that I wanted to call out is the Diego Andres Rodriguez, who plays Artie and also understudies the role of Joe. So my God, Diego, you are working your fucking ass off covering those two tracks. But Artie is Betty's fiance. Betty eventually falls in love with Joe. Artie's also Joe's best friend. And Artie, as important as he is, I've always seen him as kind of just a plot point. And I've always seen him played as kind of this like lovable idiot who like has no clue that Joe is kind of moving in on his girl. And Artie also doesn't appear in the second act typically. He does in this production, but usually doesn't show up in the second act. So he really only has 3 very short scenes to establish his character. And my God, the direction and the performance here really take every opportunity to kind of flesh out that character. This is the first time that I've seen Artie like kind of get suspicious that something's going on between Joe and Betty, and then like really by the end of the first act, I think he knows that if it hasn't happened yet, it's going to. Like there's this look of kind of fear on his face when he realizes that when he sees them talking to each other right after he's announced that he's gonna have to go to Tennessee to work on a film. You get the sense that like this man does not want to leave his girlfriend behind in the city with Joe. it just read on his face. And again, maybe that's because of like the close-ups,
Mm-hmm.
but the close-ups can't capture what's not there. And this guy, Diego Rodriguez, does a really good job at finding this like nuance in this character that I've always kind of written off as just sort of like a plot point. So awesome work there. But the four main people that we need to talk about are David Thaxton as Max the butler, Grace Hodgett-Young as Betty, Tom Francis as Joe, and then of course Nicole Scherzinger as Norma. Should we start with David Thaxton as Max?
Yeah.
First of all, voice on this man
Mm-hmm.
is like fucking incredible, and I think Max. I've always known that I think Max is the hardest role to sing in this show, at least for the male roles. Like Joe's not an easy role either. But Max has some very, very low notes and some very, very high notes
Mm-hmm.
in the same goddamn songs,
Mm-hmm.
and very close together.
Yeah.
And this particular performer just nails the vocals. Max also is very mysterious and sort of dry, and he delivered that as well. But there's something that he does at the very end of the show that just broke me emotionally. If you know the show, you know that Max is actually Norma's first husband and is kind of stayed employed, has known her since she was a teenager, and has stayed on as her butler, really to sort of protect her and shield her. And the last thing he does in the show is tricks her into going downstairs so she can be arrested for the murder of Joe Gillis, which she committed. She needs to be arrested for this, but after she walks past him, you see in the background him just break down and this primal but inaudible scream that lasts for a long, long time. And I've never seen that kind of attention paid to the character in that moment. So kudos to Jamie Lloyd for finding that and using that. But David Thaxton just breaks your heart in that moment. And then he takes his microphone off and walks off the stage. And it's so powerful. This idea of this man who's given everything to this woman having to watch her go and being the reason why she's going. It's so heartbreaking and just a really powerful moment that I think could have always been in the show.
Yeah.
But I've never...
Staging, you're always so focused on Norma coming down that grand staircase.
It's so nice. Honestly, not having that big set really frees this production to find these incredible moments that have often been upstaged by the set. The set's always been a character in the show, and it isn't in this production, and that helps the production so much. But David Thaxton, amazing performance. You can definitely tell why he got an Olivier Award nomination, and I would not be surprised if he gets a Tony Award nomination, because it's not that Max has a ton of material, but everything that this man does on that stage is so committed and so honest and so believable. And I could say the same thing for Grace Hodgett-Young as Betty, although she is playing this role in a way that I've never seen it played before, and honestly I don't want to see anyone play it any other way again. Betty, the way the role was originally written and played has always been kind of that typical female ingenue from the 1940s and 1950s, where she's super sweet and cute and you love her, you like her, but she's kind of needy of Joe in a way. and she's just, there's an innocence to her, and she seems overly optimistic, and this is not that Betty. What do you think about?
No, yeah, definitely. And she's, even though the show is still set in the late 40s, she's a more modern woman.
Yeah.
In terms of,
and it hits you immediately, within her. Honestly, I think it might even be her first line. She walks into an office, and this man who's in a position of power over her gets her last name wrong, and she corrects him. And I think that's always been in the script.
Yeah.
But the way she's always done it before is just a friendly, oh no, it's Miss Schaefer. This one is she says it God damn it, you asshole, you get my name wrong every fucking day, and you should know who I am by now.
It's Schaefer.
It's Schaefer, yeah. So she's much more sure of herself, much more grounded. They also changed a ton of her lyrics. A lot of her lyrics in her songs with Joe are more about pushing him to do better for himself, and not about oh, I need your help writing my scripts, because that's eventually how they kind of connect, is they end up working on a script together as well. Her relationship with him and Norma's relationship with him have a lot of interesting parallels. This one, I think, has made more of a contrast between her and Norma in
a good way.
In a very good way. I think the contrast has always just been their age before. And this time it's no, that it's not the age. It's that Betty doesn't feel like she needs Joe. She wants to help Joe. The fact that they partner is really more about her wanting to help him fix his script versus, helping or having him help her. And it really makes her a far more compelling character in a lot of ways. And I think it makes the juxtaposition between her and Norma far more interesting. And Grace Hodgett-Young, I want to see more from this actress. She is a young, I think this was her first professional gig in London too. She's incredible, great voice, great acting, and this is a role that is often overlooked in this show, and you cannot peel your eyes away from her and what she's doing. She's phenomenal. Anything else you want to say about her? All right. Tom Francis as Joe. First of all, very attractive guy. I need to see him play Stanley Kowalski at some point. But very, very good actor. Incredible. Calling him a good actor, I feel, is diminutive of what he's doing on that stage. Great performance. Vocally, unbelievable. But I don't think I've ever seen a Joe played as close to the way I think William Holden plays it in the film. Tom Francis is playing him very, very sarcastic, very cynical, very disillusioned with Hollywood.
Because he is.
and I think that's always been there.
That's always come off in the lyrics in the book, but
not quite to this.
Yeah, right. It's always been scripted, but it hasn't necessarily come out.
Yeah, I feel like the way he's, I felt like he was always in it for number one in this production. I feel like some of the other Joes sometimes are a bit more sincere, with Norma in particular.
Yeah.
And you see that Tom Francis's Joe is constantly thinking about well, what is this going to do for me? I don't think he's ever genuinely sincere with anybody, because he's been so beaten down by Hollywood and disillusioned that he's there's no point anymore in being nice and doing nice things for people. Just look out for number one and see what happens. And that's how he kind of plays the character. And really fun to watch that, because one, he does it incredibly well, but also, like, you get the sense that this show does not see the end coming at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think he legitimately thinks that he's going to be able to walk out of that house unscathed. And also, this is, I think, a brilliant choice. I've never seen Joe laugh at Norma in the last scene.
Mm-hmm.
And that changes everything, in my opinion. Like, this Joe never, like, diminishes her or belittles her. Like, he kind of plays along with her fantasy world a lot, as Joe always does. But I've never seen Joe be cruel towards Norma, and that last moment with him is cruel, and that changes so much. It's not like, I don't think he's intentionally cruel. Like, I think he legitimately finds it funny when she says, "I'm the greatest star of all." Like, he finds humor in the fact that she is that delusional, and he laughs, and that's when she goes, fully insane. Great performance from Tom Francis, and he also never leaves the stage. Everyone talks about Norma, and, like, the show is about Norma, and it is, and, like, the whole reason why people are buying tickets for this is because of Nicole Scherzinger, and the whole reason why people bought tickets to the previous productions was Glenn Close or Betty Buckley or whoever the hell was Norma. But really, it's Joe's show. Like, Joe's the one steering the ship the whole time. And
he's the narrator, he's the one telling the story from a flashback.
And Tom Francis is just giving a really gripping performance in this, and, like, you like Joe, but you don't, which is exactly where Joe needs to be, I think, in terms of the story. Really, really great performance. And then Nicole Scherzinger as Norma. I had high hopes for this show in general, and her in particular, and she blew my expectations out of the water. So one fun thing that this show does, and they did it because of her, because she could do it, they went back to the original orchestrations of one of her big songs, which is With One Look, first song she has of the show. When Glenn Close did it on Broadway, there's one key change in the song towards the end, right as she sings, with one look I'll ignite a blaze, like right at the end, towards the end of the song, there is a very dramatic key change down to make the end of the song easier to sing. They took the key change out because Nicole Scherzinger could fucking take the key change out and finish the song strong in a higher register, and it's I don't know, but I think almost an entire octave higher. It's crazy hearing that the end of that song sung as powerfully as she can belt it, and she's belting it freaking high. I've never seen this role sung as well as it was sung tonight. They also slowed the tempo down a little bit for With One Look and for As If We've Never Said Goodbye, and it really helps you invest in what she's saying in these moments, and like really heightens the language, I think, in a cool way. Like when I first heard the tempo that they were going with for both of them, I was like, oh man, they really slowed this down. But like, I don't want to hear those songs sung any other way now. Like, I want it at that tempo from now on. Really smart little changes that they made for her. And then her acting.
I had no idea that she could act that well.
I mean, I knew she could act, but I didn't know she could be this nuanced. And this is not the crazy Norma Desmond that we always get. this Norma is definitely self-centered, definitely lonely, narcissistic, hungry to make a comeback. But I think there's also a sense with her that like she knows this is going to be a struggle. She knows this is going to be hard, but she's game for that struggle. And she's not delusional. She may be slightly detached from reality and slightly more confident than she maybe should be in the whole idea that like she can make a comeback. But this Norma seems more real. She's not playing it melodramatically until the very end, but then when we get to the end, it feels earned. It feels like there were breadcrumbs that she could get to this point, but she's never, like, we never hear her screaming, we never hear her shouting, we never see her go into histrionics until the last 15 minutes of the show. It's not until she has that monologue of like, shout at me, strike me, but say you don't hate me, Joe, that we see this like, this woman is desperate, and like I feel like even in the final moments, I don't feel like she's fully crazy until after the murder. I feel like until then it's desperation.
Yeah, and then crime of passion.
And then after that she cannot grapple with what she just did. And that is a really interesting way to play this role. She also found way more humor in this than I've ever, like some of her line deliveries were just like hilarious, like and just really there's a playful spirit of Norma that she found and like just held on to it as long as she possibly can in this character's arc. That I feel like that makes the end even more tragic. Is like, you like this Norma, you're not afraid of her, and you never ridicule her. You never feel like she can't get what she wants, which I feel like every other Norma, it's like when we see this, woman who's in her 50s or 60s thinking that she can play an 18-year-old in a movie, like you feel like, oh honey, there's like, going in that like, oh, there's no way
cute.
There's no way that this woman's ever gonna get what she wants. This one, I think, one, because she's younger, and Nicole Scherzinger is gorgeous, like absolutely stunning, and there is kind of this sense of like, she could, if people gave her the chance, she could possibly, and maybe not an 18-year-old, but like, but she could come
play
back.
Younger,
She could play younger. She could come back. And she's got time. She's not an old woman, but she's a forgotten woman. There are two moments of staging with her that I really, really loved. I mean, there's a lot of moments with her that I loved, but two in particular that are gonna be like seared in my memory, and one happens before the show even really starts. There is this sort of like mylar-ish kind of semi-see-through curtain that they have at the front of the stage, and before the show started, they start lighting it from behind, and you realize that Nicole's standing there, and she gets incredible applause, and everyone thinks that the show's going to start, and it doesn't. She just stands there for a good 5-10 minutes.
She looks around.
And she looks around, and she has this like presence.
Her body doesn't move, but
she has
changes
this,
her.
She has a stately
presence.
presence.
Looks around
and like very slowly, like is looking at the people in the audience. And I was like, and it's funny, the people around us, I don't think like they expected the show to start, and like some of them thought that it was supposed to, and that there was
testing the lighting. What's going on? But
and I'm like, oh no.
In a New Yorker accent, I can't do that. So
that
like, made it even more funny, honestly.
and I'm like, oh no.
Testing the laundry?
She's.
What the hell was
I don't know what that was.
Great, this is on video now. Thank you. My terrible accents. Yay.
At least it wasn't
Russian.
He always has a Russian accent anytime he's trying to do it. Any sort of accent that comes out Russian. Anyway. But she's just like, has this like presence, and she's looking at us. She's looking at the people in the audience. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is such a beautiful metaphor for the whole show of like, there's this very thin divide between this woman and reality. Like, we're reality, and she's in her own little world, and she's looking at these people that are out there in the dark for her. But like, but there's this disconnect. We're separated by this screen that's between us.
The silver.
And it was a literal silver screen. So that I thought was a brilliant little thing, and like great way to kick off this show is with this image of her standing there and waiting for her moment that she doesn't get. Like, we don't see her again for a good 15 minutes. And then the other moment.
Yeah, during the overture, she did a contemporary.
Oh yeah,
dance.
she did a contemporary dance, which is because like if you have Nicole Scherzinger, you fucking make her dance. And incredible dance.
But then she runs off.
And yeah,
we have.
My God, Nicole is an incredible dancer. Just beautiful, beautiful work from her, and like vocally, acting wise, and dance wise. They also do a really cool thing where they have
a body double.
They have an ensemble member play young Norma. So when we have, they used it quite a lot. Mostly in the second act, but in the first act, during the, what song is that? But there's a song where she's watching one of her old movies, and we see this young version of Norma come out. And dance, and sometimes they would dance together, and it was just a really cool idea to have a young Norma. They also did this really cool thing in that sequence where they would do a close-up of young Norma and then have it dissolve into Nicole's face. There were bags under Nicole's eyes, which I don't think were there earlier in the show when we got close-ups of her face. So makeup team, in the one moment where you needed to make her look older, like, good job. Because the rest of the time she looks absolutely stunning. But those moments I thought were cool. But the other big moment is the way in which the final scene is staged, from the moment where she realized that Joe's leaving to the very end of the show was some of the best fucking acting and staging I have seen in any show. So at the end of the show, she calls Betty. Joe says, Betty, come over, and basically like makes Betty decide to leave him by being like, I can't, he basically tells her like, I can't leave all of this stuff behind, like, look at all these amazing things that I have, I can't have that with a life with you. So Betty leaves. By the way, Betty always cries in this moment. I've always seen her break down and cry, and I am so glad that it's always a very melodramatic, young 20-something woman who never thinks she's gonna find love again. And this one, like, she leaves stronger and like kind of defiant.
That was one of the lyric changes during Too Much in Love to Care. Was she alluded to that she's been heartbroken before.
Yeah.
And that was one of the lyric changes.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the original lyric was now, but
yeah, there was a lyric change where it's she's been heartbroken before, and like,
I've been here before.
She says, I've been here before, which I think is great. Like, again, almost all of the lyric changes were around her, or were taking out references to the 1940s that like were referencing celebrities that maybe a lot of the audience doesn't know who they are anymore. So she leaves, and the way her exit is staged is more of a defiance of like, I don't need to put up with this. And she does the whole thing that Max later does of taking off her microphone and just walking out. And then Tom Francis starts taking off his jacket, and then the pants, and then the shoes, and the socks, and the shirt, till the point where he's
taking off the things
all
that
of the
he
things
just said he liked, and
all of the things
for.
that Norma gave him.
Yep.
Because there's a scene in the first act where, you know, he gets a whole new wardrobe that she's purchased for him. So he strips all of the artifice off, to the point where he's down in his underwear.
Including his socks.
Including his socks.
That was,
by the way,
somewhat unnecessary.
Nicole Scherzinger does not wear shoes this entire show.
No, she's barefoot the entire time.
Which I kind of like. I don't know why I like it, but I she's in a slip the whole show.
Her outfit is very
just
negligee-esque.
Yeah. But he strips everything off, says, "I'm leaving you, Norma," and she kind of growls, you know, "No one ever leaves a star," to him, and then the lights go out, and you hear these like primal sounds from both of them. These like, you know, I don't even know how to describe the sounds that they're making in this moment, but it's terrifying. And then the lights flash on, and
because his are like victim grunts and
she's
growls
like making these like kind of attacking animal kind of sounds,
primal,
almost like. And then the lights flash on for a split second, and we see a little bit of blood on him. And then the lights go out again. We hear more of these sounds. There's another flash of light. We see even more blood on him. And that's how the death scene is staged. We never see the gun. We never hear a gunshot.
There was a sound.
There was a sound like a thud kind of sound.
Just a drum beat.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah. Not a gunshot.
But definitely not a gunshot. And like it. But the way that moment looks and sounds was fucking terrifying. I like really, really brilliant. And then the lights don't come back up for a good minute,
maybe longer.
It
was a while.
As Nicole Scherzinger, as Norma, sings some small reprises of certain lyrics that she's sung earlier in the show, and like to her dead. Well, not just those. I mean, there's a lot of other ones, but that's part of it.
Right,
but like she's
and mad about the boy,
and like she kisses his mouth. But from the Salome sequence, like there's a lot of like these things that, but like she's like replaying everything from their relationship in complete darkness, and like in this super creepy, like we're now at full tilt batshit crazy Norma voice. And that whole moment and the final monologue that she has where she thinks she's talking to Cecil B. DeMille, but Cecil B. is not there, like all of that was like heartbreaking and terrifying, and like gave me chills and like disgusted me and drew me like every possible fucking emotion that I could feel from this moment, they got out of me. Like it just was unbelievable. The last 15 minutes of this show, I mean the whole show is incredible, but the last 15 minutes were some of the best theater I've ever seen in my life. Nicole gets, or at least on the performance that we saw, got 2 standing ovations, one at the end of With One Look and one at the end of As If We Never Said Goodbye. With One Look took a while to get to a standing O, I think just because like people don't usually give mid-show standing O's.
Right.
Like we stayed in our seat. Like I stayed in my seat longer than I wanted to. I was like, I just don't want to be the first one out. But immediate standing O after As If We Never Said Goodbye, and Tom Francis and just the tech in general got one right after the title song. So 3 mid-show standing O's. I don't think I've ever seen a single mid-show standing O in my entire life. and all of those seemed very well deserved.
And
tonight.
it's still in previews.
And yeah, this was the second performance on Broadway, people.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, also, their sound design. Their sound was so crisp and clear, and
how big is the orchestra listed in here? How big
it
is
is
the orchestra?
listed. The orchestra's big. I don't know.
Sounded huge.
I don't know
which
if
was
it's
awesome.
quite as big as the show was originally orchestrated for, or
Right.
not. But if it's not, it's pretty fucking close. Like it's a big. I mean, that's got to be at least a 20-person orchestra. But yeah, the orchestra sounds incredible.
Certainly bigger than most Broadway orchestras these days.
Some of the orchestrations are very different. We mentioned the cut key change in With One Look. Girl Meets Boy, the first duet that Joe and Betty had some really cool stripped down orchestrations where it was almost all guitar. Which was really kind of refreshing because like the rest of the show is so grandiose in the way it sounds. It was really nice to hear this song done more simply, and it's very simply staged with the two of them just sitting in chairs and kind of having this conversation through song. It was really, I'm not sure if you, we didn't talk about that one earlier, but like that was like a moment for me that I was like, oh, this sounds very different than it does in the other, the original cast recording, but it makes sense in this production. Like honestly, the only complaint that I have is that we don't have fucking tickets to see this again later in the week. Although hopefully that changes. I mean, I would go see this again in a heartbeat. This is event theater at its finest. Like, and they are on a limited run. I do not think that they will extend, and just because of Nicole and her schedule and everything. So if you can see this, go. If you don't, I think you're gonna kick yourself in the pants if you have the opportunity.
Hopefully those rumors about a pro shot are true.
And yeah, I really hope that this gets a pro shot, because I feel like every single person involved in this production is giving a master class in whatever they do, whether it's sound, whether it's someone, whether they're in the pit, whether they're on the stage, whether they're doing sound, or lighting design, or videography, video or direction. Like every single person involved in this production is at the top of their game and like doing work that I don't like. I've never seen work done like this before. Really, really incredible, and like I feel very honored and very blessed that I got to see the original production of this before it came to Broadway in the 90s. But I also feel incredibly blessed and honored that I got to see this production, and both are two of my favorite experiences in a theater, and both are incredibly memorable productions in different ways that I feel stay true to the material and honor the material. And by the way, the respect paid to the movie with the material of the show itself, a lot of the dialogue is taken directly from the movie, and the movie was written and directed by Billy Wilder, so who's one of my favorite writers and directors of all time. So I think this feels like this always has felt like a love letter to him, but especially this production because they're using film and they made it black and white. Every moment. There's only one moment of like where we see color in this entire show. We do not see any color until the last 15 minutes. In that final scene, we see a pop of red, and that's it. And honestly, that's all the show needs. Like, it doesn't need anything else.
And to bookend the film and live stage mashup.
Oh yeah.
It does have an opening credit sequence after the first number. During the car chase.
During the car chase.
Which
was so cool.
And then at the very end, while the orchestra
is doing the exit music.
Doing the exit music after bows. Yeah, we get credits,
which I thought was a very nice touch, and also I think a really cool way of like honoring every single person that worked on the show. I mean, down to like the security team, and the ushers. I think were listed in there. Like every single person involved in this production is part of that, and I think that was really, really cool. The next time Jamie Lloyd does anything, I want to go see his work again. Like he's very quickly becoming one of my favorite directors, and not just from this, but from other things that I have seen clips of and seen him in interviews talking about, and things that I've heard from other people. Like his work is consistent in that like he's got a very specific visual style, but everything is justified and everything comes back around to the script and the characters, which is like, I love it when directors go back to the basics of the material and just like, how do we get this material to resonate even more? Like, and I think this production does that, and his work does that, and like I cannot say I can't heap enough praise on this production. This was one of the best, if not the best, thing I've ever seen produced on a stage. And I've seen a lot of damn good theater in 40 years. But this felt special and vital and necessary and like just incredible. And my God, these all of the and I'm sure there's more than just the main four that are making their Broadway debut in this show. Like, what an incredible debut. This is going to be a huge contender for awards this season. And by the way, like, already I feel like the leading actress category this year is going to be like the Hunger Games of Broadway actresses, because like we've got Nicole in this, we've got Audra coming in Gypsy, presumably. Come on, every time Audra McDonald could go on stage and sneeze and she'd get a Tony nomination, and rightfully so. That would be the most beautifully acted sneeze.
So if she doesn't, it would be odd.
But yeah, the two of them, Sutton in Once Upon a Mattress, and God knows what else is coming. I mean, we're still really early in the season, and the season doesn't end until April. So we're still very, very early on.
Death Becomes Her.
Oh yeah, Death Becomes Her. I'm totally proud about that. So Megan Hilty and Jennifer Samard will probably get nominations for that, based on what we've heard.
Smash. Or is that still?
I don't know. Idina Menzel's coming in a new show called Redwood. I'm not surprised that Kristen Chenoweth's show is holding off, seeing this like this caravan of incredible actresses. Like Kristen's like, I'll wait this one out.
I want a better chance than Tony.
I would too, Kristen. I would too. This is gonna be it always is an incredible year, I think, for a leading actress. That seems like it's always like the hardest category, but this year in particular, I'm like, my God. And I'm sure I will feel that even more after we see Sutton Foster on Wednesday in Once Upon a Mattress. Like this is an incredible year, and I'm glad that we're at this point in this industry after the pandemic where like incredible work is being done, and this was and all of the stuff that's coming right now is stuff that was in development immediately after the pandemic. So like I love that Broadway's back, and back in a big way. This is a production that people will be talking about for decades, guys. Go get your tickets. Unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. So that was a very long video. If you stuck it out this long, thank you. You are our kind of people. But tomorrow we are seeing. Tomorrow is I'm like so.
Cabaret?
Tomorrow is what?
Is tomorrow Cabaret?
Tomorrow is Cabaret. That's right. So we will be seeing the revival of Cabaret tomorrow night, and then we'll post a review about that after we're back. Have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you after you've watched this. It is 12:39 here, so we're gonna go to bed. But we will post another video tomorrow. Take care, everybody.